This is the Coleman 4-person instant camping tent. If you're thinking about picking one up, I just want to walk you through my experience, because this tent is the kind of thing that sounds simple on paper. But the real value, or the real frustration, shows up when you're tired, it's getting dark, and the ground is not as flat as you hoped. What it is, in real terms, is a car camping tent built around speed and low effort. I wouldn't bring this backpacking. I treat it like something that lives in the trunk, comes out at a drive-in campsite, a state park pad, a festival, or even the backyard. The 4-person part is realistic if you're talking about 4 sleeping pads and not much else. The way I actually use it is 2 adults plus bags inside. And it feels comfortable like that. With 4 adults, I'd expect elbows and gear stacked, and you're going to feel it. The reason this one's interesting is the pre-attached pole system. With most tents, setup is basically a little construction project. Find poles, feed them through sleeves, clip them, tension everything, then deal with the rainfly. Here the structure is already connected. I unfold it, extend the frame, and it's standing. The first time I used it, I was honestly suspicious of the instant thing, but it's not a trick. The setup really is fast when the ground cooperates. I've had it standing in about a minute when I wasn't fighting wind. When it's windy, I can still do it solo, but I move quicker because the walls catch air. Physically, it looks like a cabin-style tent with more vertical walls than a dome tent. In use, that matters more than I expected. The shape gives you usable space right out to the corners, so it feels less like you're sleeping in the middle of a triangle. It's easier to sit up and change clothes without brushing fabric constantly. I'm also not crawling around as much, even though it's not a tall stand-up tent for me. It's listed around a 4-foot height range, and that matches how it feels. I can't stand, but I can move around on my knees and sit comfortably. Build-wise, the fabric feels thicker than the bargain tents that feel like they could snag on anything. It's polyester with a sturdier hand feel, and the floor has that tarp-like polyethylene feel. When you step on it, it has that crinkly sound, especially if it's cold out. I always put something under it anyway, because the floor can only take so much scraping on gravel or roots before you risk a puncture. The stitching and seams look clean, and the floor comes up the sides in that bathtub shape, which is what I want if water starts moving across the ground. The poles on my unit are fiberglass, and they're permanently part of the tent's structure. That's convenient, but it also changes the kind of care I give it. I don't toss this in the back with heavy bins on top of it, because the packed bag is long, and the frame doesn't love being crushed. I've also learned to be gentle when extending and locking the frame. It's not hard to use, but if you get a twist in the structure and you force it, that's when joints and pole segments take stress. When everything is aligned, it clicks into place with a pretty clear locked feeling. Setup in practice is straightforward. I lay it out, roughly square it to the site, unfold it, and start extending the frame. What slows me down isn't the tent itself, it's site prep. If the ground is lumpy, I spend more time moving it around to find the least bad spot. Once it's standing, staking the corners matters. This tent is freestanding, so it'll stand without stakes, but that doesn't mean you should leave it that way. With the vertical walls, it can shift more than a low dome tent. If I'm expecting wind, I add guy lines and actually tension them instead of just clipping them on and calling it good. Daily use is pretty normal, which is a compliment. The door zipper on mine runs smoothly, and the windows give a lot of airflow. On warm evenings, I can get a cross breeze going, and it doesn't feel like a sealed bag. The trade-off is that big mesh areas are only as weather-safe as the rainfly coverage and how the wind is blowing. This model includes a rainfly, and I like that it's integrated, so I'm not wrestling with an extra layer during setup. In light rain and steady drizzle, I stayed dry. In heavier rain with wind pushing water sideways, I've had some dampness show up, near zippers and edges where water wants to sit. It wasn't a total soak-through situation for me, but it was enough that I started being more careful about how I position the tent and how I tension everything. I also don't open the door and stand there chatting in the rain, because there's no real covered porch area. When you unzip the door, rain has a straight path inside if it's coming down hard. I've used it on a humid night where the temperature dropped, and I did get condensation on the inside walls. That's not unique to this tent, but because it's more of a single wall feel in places, you notice it. Ventilation helps, and I keep at least a couple windows cracked unless it's truly cold or blowing rain. If you're camping somewhere wet and cool, you'll want to manage that, because brushing against a damp wall at 2 a.m. is annoying. Space is good for a queen air mattress, and that's actually how I tested it, because that's what a lot of people will do. A queen fits, and I still had a strip of floor for a couple bags, shoes, and a small light. It's not a bring everything inside tent, but it's also not the cramped wedge shape where your gear ends up on your pillow. There are storage pockets, and I use them for headlamps and a phone so they're not sliding around the floor. Pack size and weight are the part I feel every time. It's around 19 pounds, and it carries like a long, awkward duffel. I can carry it from the car to the site without a problem, but I notice it, especially if I'm also hauling a cooler. It fits better in an SUV than a small trunk because of the length. The carry bag works, but packing it is where the instant convenience kind of charges you back. You have to get air out, fold it the right way, and compress it. When I'm patient, it goes in. When I'm tired and trying to leave quickly, I end up wrestling it and refolding it once. There's also no mobile app support here, and honestly, I'm happy about that. It's a tent. The smart feature is that it sets up fast and doesn't require me to remember a pole map. In real-life usage, that's the part that changes my mood at camp. I've shown up late, set it up quickly, and gotten out of the wind without turning setup into an event. For newer campers or anyone who camps with kids and just wants the shelter part handled quickly, that's where this design makes sense. Where I think it performs well is typical three-season car camping. Mild to warm weather, occasional rain, and normal campground wind. I don't treat it like a storm shelter. The walls are more vertical, so wind has more to grab. If you camp in open areas where gusts hit hard, you need to stake it well, use guy lines, and pay attention to site selection. For rain, I trust it in normal conditions, but if the forecast is all-night heavy rain with wind, I'd take extra precautions. For me, that means adding a ground sheet under it, keeping gear in waterproof bags, and being thoughtful about drainage around the site. After spending time with it, my overall impression is pretty clear. I use this tent when I want camping to be easy. It's not small, it's not light, and it's not something I'd drag deep into bad weather by choice. It is something I can set up quickly by myself, sleep comfortably in with plenty of usable floor space, and pack away without needing to remember how the poles go. The weaknesses are also pretty consistent. Bulky carry, some effort to get it back into the bag, and you need to be realistic about wind and sideways rain. If you've used this tent, or if you're deciding between this and a more traditional dome tent, drop a comment and tell me what kind of camping you do and what weather you usually deal with. Subscribe to the channel for more real-world gear reviews, and thank you for watching.